So today we're going to start our review of affordable rares from the Wrath block. I wanted to go back to these sets from the Wrath block, Tempest, Stronghold, and Exodus. So even though I played back in that time, like I don't know the cards that well. So I want to review those cards and see if there's some, affordable gems sitting out there that I'm just not aware of. We've talked many times about how we were never tournament players. We're not going to be tournament players now that we're getting back into it. We just like to brew for the kitchen table. And, it's fun to try to find cards that people aren't playing with and try to build something interesting out of them. Mm-hmm. So that's what we're going to start doing today. We're going to review some affordable rares from the set Tempest. All the rares we're going to talk about today are under $5. That was the cutoff I had. And many of them are significantly under $5. Essentially, unplayed bulk rare prices. I got to plug in my computer. I'm so unprofessional, Alex. Every week I forget to plug in one of my computers. So the first one, not going into my commander deck, because there's no blue in my commander deck, but I'm wondering if something fun could be done with this card. First card is Rootwater Matriarch from Tempest. I'm going to zoom in on this beauty.
Yeah.
It's a rare. It has been reprinted in 10th edition. Casting cost is 2 colorless, 2 blue, summon Merfolk. So you can tap Rootwater Matriarch to gain control of target creature as long as that creature has any enchantments on it. It was pretty highly rated on Gatherer at 4.0, even though I don't see anybody playing it ever. And it has a current market price of 38 cents. So the first thing that caught my attention when I ran this card was that it untaps and you can repeat this effect.
Yes, I noticed this too, which is sweet.
There are Old Man Magic cards that do stuff like this, like Old Man of the Sea and Preacher, but I think in both of those cases,
everything like that from this
tapped.
era that I can remember, was built so that you could only do it once. That it had to remain tapped. And this is exactly the same casting cost as a Control Magic.
Yeah.
And you can use it multiple times. So I think that's definitely cool. There's some potential. Obviously, it has, the creature has to have an enchantment on it. I got a little bit carried away. I was like, oh, enchantments. I got excited. And I was like, I could just, preemptively stack up what I want on that creature, low casting cost thing like a Rancor or whatever, and then steal it. You brought up a good point, though. If they counter that or somehow foil my plan, then I've enchanted their creature for them. So you do open yourself up a little bit if you're trying to combo with this.
One of the enchantments that you might be safe to toss on your opponent's creatures to then steal with the Rootwater Matriarch is Bequeathal. Bequeathal is that looks like an uncommon to me. Is that like silver?
It looks like it. It's kind of hard to tell from the picture, but I think it is, yeah.
I think it's an uncommon from Exodus. It's just a 1 green enchant creature. If enchanted creature is put into any graveyard, draw 2 cards.
I like that. That's pretty cool.
You toss this on their creature, they get rid of your matriarch, so you can't steal the creature that you wanted to steal. Who cares? The Bequeathal didn't make their creature more powerful. It didn't give them any kind of special ability.
That's true. Okay, interesting.
The other thing is, you put Bequeathal on their creature, you steal it. They're not going to be happy that you now have their creature. They're going to want to nail that creature, put it in the graveyard. That's great. They put it in the graveyard, you lose the creature you just stole, you lose the Bequeathal, but then you get to draw 2 new cards. You get something out of the exchange.
Yeah.
Either way. Other cheap to cast enchantments you could put on either your creatures or your opponent's creatures in a deck with the Matriarch. This was the first one that popped into my head. This was the first one that you just said, Rancor.
Mm-hmm.
Just 1 green, 1 drop, pop a Rancor on it, tap your Rootwater Matriarch. You got a trampling +2 creature that you just stole from them.
Mm-hmm.
Another cheap little enchantment you might want to put on their creatures to steal. Launch. I found Launch. Launch. 1 colorless, 1 blue, enchant creature. Enchanted creature gains flying. When Launch is put into a graveyard from play, return Launch to owner's hands. That's the key too. I was also looking for not only cheap to cast enchantments, but enchantments that will come back to you. If you steal their creature, they get rid of it. You regain the enchantment, and then you can just plop it on whatever creature they play next, and then you can steal it again. You can repeat that process. There was another one, darn it, that I found, and I wanted to talk about it in this context. And I thought I wrote it in the show notes, but now I can't find it anywhere. It was a white enchantment that came back to your hand. It was Flickering Ward, and I just like this because you could make it come back to your hand. Flickering Ward from Tempest. When you play Flickering Ward, choose a color. Enchanted creature gains protection from the chosen color. So that's good because whatever you snag from them, you could give protection from whatever color some other creature they have might be. So then you have
that's not a bad combo, actually. I like that a lot.
You have a blocker, or you have somebody that can just go through their blockers. And if they eliminate, like I said, if they kill the creature that you stole from them, you pay a white, you get this back. You could repeat the process.
Yeah, I like that. It's pretty good combo.
That's not bad at all. Not bad at all. So these are things that I thought of that you could do with the friggin' Root and Water Matriarch that nobody plays and is available for 38 cents.
Hey, Unstable Mutation might not even be too bad, because if they foil your attempt, then their creature slowly dies.
Yeah.
Not ideal, but
there are worse things to do.
Yeah. It might make, Root Water Matriarch make an appearance in my Unstable Mutation deck,
Second card, Alex. Second Tempest Rare under $5 that I found in my recent review of cheap Tempest Rares. This one I think I'm gonna put this in my Commander deck. I think I'm gonna at least try it out. It is Gerard's Battle Cry. This is a rare from Tempest with no reprints, casting cost of only 1 white, which I love. For 2 colors and 1 white, all creatures you control get +1/+1 until end of turn. It has a rating of 4.008 on Gatherer, a current market price of 49 cents. So I love that it's cheap to play. It is kind of steep to activate.
Yeah.
It's probably not as good in a white deck as Crusade. I would just run the Crusades. But in a deck like mine, like my Commander deck called the Pump, that's creature focused, where I just want to do whatever I can to pump my tramplers. And for certain reasons, for synergistic reasons, I'm only running green creatures in that deck. This is a great way to pump everything. The third card I found, Alex, it's not a good one.
Not a good one.
But it amused me. And
yes, this was amusing.
Yeah.
I find this amusing.
It's direct damage in green, which is always interesting. It is Heartwood Giant from Tempest. It's a rare with no reprints. Casting cost is 3 colorless, 2 green. Summon Giant. Tap Heartwood Giant and sacrifice a forest. Heartwood Giant deals 2 damage to target player. It has a rating of 2.845 on Gatherer, which is probably where it should be. And it's available for a current market price of, I wrote 49 cents, but I was wrong. 30 cents, Alex. Crucible of Worlds, baby. We've been talking every episode about cards that you can pitch lands to, put them in your graveyard, and then just play them from your graveyard like they're in your hand, like Crucible of Worlds. This is another card to slot into our deck that it requires us to sacrifice all of our lands. Somebody else also said, this was a Gatherer comment posted by Blood Moon 1987, posted on August 22nd, 2011 at 10:58 p.m. He said, has no one heard of Groundskeeper? It'll keep them going forever. So this is a guy that thinks like us. He just wants to build a terrible deck that includes a bunch of cards that require him to sacrifice all of his lands, and it'll never work, but he wants to make it work. We talked about Groundskeeper a couple episodes ago. I showed him to you. Do you remember what he was?
I'm trying to remember.
It was this Mercadian Masks 1/1 drop Also reprinted in 9th edition.
Oh,
so
yeah,
I'll just
okay.
show this.
Graveyard to hand with the lands.
Yeah, 1 colorless, 1 green, return target basic land card from your graveyard to your hand. So that deadly groundkeeper Heartwood Giant combo. Coming straight for your face, doing 2 damage a turn and requiring 2 mana and the loss of a forest temporarily every time you want to do those 2 damage.
You can also use it with Harvest Worm.
This is going in the Harvest Worm, Rogue Elephant, Crucible of Worlds, Groundskeeper, Heartwood Giant deck.
I'd put in my Harvest Worm deck. They're like halfway in between 2 things with this card. Like, he's a 4/4, but you got to tap him to do his thing, which is frustrating because then you don't get to use him as the 4/4 really.
Yeah.
I think this card would have been really cool if they made him not tap to use his ability, and they could have just put like can only be used once a turn on it.
Yeah.
You could use that ability once a turn and still use him as a 4/4, and then it would be like a pretty neat card.
It wouldn't have been wild, even in the days of Tempest, power-wise, just to
2 damage.
have yeah, it's not unreasonable to have a 5 casting cost 4/4 that you could say pay 1 mana every turn to do 2 damage. Not that crazy. The tree, if you get hit with a tree in the face, it should do more than 2 damage. People get hit with trees, they're dead, Alex.
It's true.
Dead.
It's true.
The 4th cheap rare from Tempest. This is another one I'm considering for my commander deck. So I'm pretty sure I'm going to put Gerard's Battle Cry in because it just fits with the pump theme so well. But I like this one a lot too. This is one I got to think about a little bit. Elven Warhounds. It is a rare from Tempest. It was reprinted in the list. It has a casting cost of 3 colorless, 1 green. It's summon hounds, not summon elves or elven hounds. Interesting. I wonder if this guy would see a lot more play if it was an elven hound and they could have elf synergy,
Yeah, you're right.
If elven hounds is blocked by any creature, put that creature on top of owner's library. It's a 2/2. It has a rating of 4.277 on Gatherer. Current market price of 45 cents.
By the way, now it is a creature dog.
Oh, I guess all hounds were changed to dogs.
I guess.
So you could make a dog deck. I've heard people in the past talk about hound decks, but now it's just a dog deck.
I just don't want to have to say dog deck a lot.
Yeah. Jackal Pup. Red-green dog deck. Jackal Pups, Elven Hounds.
You're going to say it wrong eventually.
No, I'm not.
Definitely can't say red dog deck.
Yeah, you can. You just did it successfully, Alex.
I mean, all the time. You can't reliably say it without disaster striking.
Say it again.
No.
So the thing I like about this card, I like cards that make your opponents make a decision. So this is a card that forces your opponent to have to make a decision.
Yeah.
And people's brains, they can't make that many decisions.
No.
They run out of energy.
Brains
they
are
start
good
doing stupid things.
decisions.
So the decision you have to make is let this guy through, or you block with it. And even if your blocker kills the creature, you lose a round of attack with the card that gets bounced back to you. And if you really want that card in play, which you probably do, or else you wanted to put it in your deck and then cast it in the first place, you got to spend the mana again to recast the creature that blocks. So it's like, what would I call it? Maybe half of a time walk almost. It has a time walk like effect on your opponent if they choose to block, because then they have to spend resources and time to redo something they've already done.
Yeah, well, that's why I like bounce stuff in general. Like, it's usually pretty low cost, and it undoes, a larger casting cost thing that they've done and messes up their plans.
Now it gets even better if you can combo this with something. So of course, the first thing I thought was lure. You could lure this bad boy up. All creatures able to block Elven Warhounds then must do so.
And then you
so
bounce
if they have a,
4 creatures onto there, and any tokens just get killed.
I didn't think about that. I didn't know what happened, but that's what happens, I guess. Yeah, because they can't go back to your hand. So
right.
Interesting. So you could lure this guy up. What are you going to do? Make a Cockatrice, Thicket, Basilisk, Elven Warhounds lore deck? Maybe. But then you only got 4 lures. What else are you going to do? I saw this card, Tempting Listed. I don't know if I'm pronouncing this right or not. Listed.
Listen, yeah.
2 colorless, 1 green. Summon Listed. Pay a green and tap. Tempting Listed loses this ability and becomes a creature enchantment that reads, all creatures able to block enchanted creature must do so instead of a creature. Move Tempting Listed onto target creature. You may pay green to end this effect. So it's a lore on a stick, essentially. If you wanted to build more lore effects into your deck,
Okay.
you could lose Tempting Listed.
Yeah.
I like the Listed. I got a 5th card.
Good.
I got a 5th card coming for you, Alex.
All right.
You might have brought this one up before. I don't know if we talked about it on the show or if we just talked about it off the show or if I just saw it and I never talked to you about it before. Dracoplasm.
So I feel like I brought this up to you because I know I picked up a few of them for cheap, like last year sometime.
Okay.
This card is probably not good.
I want it to be good, and I'm
want
like,
it to be good. And when I read it, I was like, I feel like I'll find some way to use this eventually. I want to find a combo for this. Maybe one day someone will, and it will be because it's a pretty unique card. So I have hopes that like something will come of it, and it's really cheap.
It's a rare, no reprints, casting cost of 1 blue, 1 red, summon shapeshifter. It is star with flying. When you play Dracoplasm, sacrifice any number of creatures. Then Dracoplasm comes into play with power equal to the total power of the sacrificed creatures and toughness equal to the total toughness of those creatures. And it has fire breathing, so you can pay a red to give it +1/+0 until end of turn. It has a very high rating on Gatherer, 4.204.
That's interesting.
But a current market price of 51 cents, which again indicates that nobody actually plays this. And that it's just a bulk rare. So I don't know if people loved it and played with it when Tempest first came out, and then everybody after playing with it decided it wasn't any good.
Yeah. Or maybe it's just a lot of people that sort of think it's fun, you know?
Could be.
Because it seemed like
I'm like that.
Some comments on it, and it did seem like people talking about it, you know, being like good on their home, you know, kitchen table and having fun with it. So they liked it.
What do you do with this, Alex? Like a counter burn style deck where you just have burn, ball lightnings, counters, and Dracoplasm. So you got to sacrifice something to this card. How about sacrificing something that's only going to last for a turn anyways?
Yes, that's what a lot of people talk about. A lot of people mention ball lightning, it seems like.
Problem is that does require 5 mana to do. So it's not unattainable, but it's pricey. But also, it's 5 mana to come at you with a 6/6 trampler, and then to create, a 6/1 trampler, and then to create a 6/1 flyer with fire breathing. So when you think about what you get for that 5 mana, it's not too much.
Not too much or not too bad?
It's not too high of a cost to pay.
Yeah.
So maybe sack a creature with fading to it, but then there aren't any good red or blue creatures with fading. All the good creatures with fading that we've talked about are green. So then you're talking about a red. You're talking about a 3-color deck.
3-color deck, and yeah.
Then how much fire breathing are you going to even be able to do? And then you're going to have the right mix of blue, red, and green to make all this happen. It's kind of asking for a lot. What else can you do? You can sacrifice your opponent's creatures to this. So you're talking blue. You're playing a deck with blue in it. Steal your opponent's creatures. Sack them to the Dracoplasm. Reigns of Power. Also not expensive. A blue card from Stronghold. Current market price 98 cents. 2 colorless, 2 blue, instant. You and target opponent each untap and gain control of all creatures the other controls until end of turn. Those creatures are unaffected by summoning sickness this turn. So, counter burn deck, where your only creatures are Dracoplasm and Ball Lightning, and then you load up with Reigns of Power, maybe 1 or 2 control magics. I mean, you could take all of their creatures. You have nothing on the board. They get nothing. Then you sack them all to Dracoplasm. And then you got a huge-ass creature that has power and toughness equal to all the creatures they had. This would be the end of the game if this combo could work. Now, this requires 6 mana to pull off. That's the other thing.
I don't know. So like the way I look at Dracoplasm is that for 2 mana, I convert creatures into a flying and fire breathing creature. So that's not a bad trade mana wise, really. The downside is that you turn multiple creatures into one, which can be bad for you. Then it's susceptible to removal or being blocked. So it's kind of touchy there. I thought about using it since you sacrifice any number of creatures, you could use this to stock up your graveyard. But now again, we're talking about playing a black, red, blue deck.
Yeah.
You're trying to, stock up your graveyard for something. I mean, maybe not necessarily. It might just only need a little bit of black or whatever. But so that's an option.
There's also creatures that you just want to get into your graveyard. And we've seen some of these. I don't know if they're all. I think there's a cycle of them from Judgment.
Oh yeah, so okay, that's a good call. Yeah.
The green one is Genesis, but the red and the blue ones aren't too bad either. So the blue one is Anger. You get this guy. This is some of the weirdest looking Magic the Gathering art ever created. 3 colorless, 1 red, a 2/2 with haste. As long as Anger's in your graveyard and you control a mountain, creatures you control all have haste. So
yeah, that's true. That's kind of a good combo.
And then Wonder is the one in blue. It's also a good card, and it gives all creatures you control. It gives them flying if this is in the graveyard. Again, a 3 colorless, 1 blue, 2/2 flying. As long as Wonder is in your graveyard and you control an island, creatures you control have flying. So,
but the Dracoplasm gives flying itself. So
yeah,
the Wonder would just help other creatures you control. So yeah, those aren't bad. And it can also work on creatures that have like upkeeps or cumulative upkeeps. That's kind of like the fading idea. Get them out, use it for a little while. When you're tired of paying the upkeep, convert it with the Dracoplasm.
I like it. Alex, I'm thinking we can make Dracoplasm work.
Yeah, I think so. And the other thing about this is there's a card's going to come out that breaks this eventually, I feel like. You know what I mean? Like they'll release something else that will make Dracoplasm better one day.
Good. Okay, Alex, I got a 6 card for you.
All right.
Number 6 coming at you. The 6th cheap rare from Tempest that Steve found when he was searching MTG stocks the other day. Winds of Wrath. So I think this is something that could work pretty well.
Yeah, I like
definitely this. In an enchantment heavy deck, an enchantress deck, and enchantment heavy decks with or without enchantress. I mean, they tend to be green white. White's a great color for this card.
Yeah, in the Femeref enchantress deck zone, this would be a great card.
It's a rare. There's several reprints, all in commander focused sets. It has a casting cost of 3 colorless, 2 white. It's a sorcery. And you destroy all creatures with no enchantments on them. Those creatures cannot be regenerated this turn. It has a rating of 4.303 on Gatherer, a current market price of $3.99. So this has risen above the price of bulk rare, and people have recognized it for a while.
Yeah, it seems like it's on the upswing here. That's cool. I like the art.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't even have to play this just in like an enchantment or enchantress type deck. Like you might be able to play it in like a really low number of creature type deck where you're reliably enchanting that creature for some reason. Say I have a deck that like it only has like 2 different creatures in it, and I always enchant them with something because of like the theme of the deck.
Elven Warhounds lore dominating Licit deck. Some people might say this would be the perfect place to put this card. Next card, Alex, is the 7th card we're talking about today.
7, okay.
This is a contender for my commander deck called the Pump. It's on theme for the Pump. It's Dirt Cow Worm.
Yeah. I like Dirt Cow Worm. I have a few of these in my binder. I'm waiting to use them.
Rare, no large reprints. Casting costs 4 colorless, 1 green, summon Worm. You're going to put these in your Worm deck.
I feel like I should put this in my commander deck.
I might put it in my commander deck.
Because, I mean, people are playing lands, and I want to sit there defensively and let this guy get bigger.
That's my thought too. Whenever any opponent plays a land, put a +1/+1 counter on Dirt Cow Worm. It has a rating of 3.606 on Gatherer, current market price of 113. I wouldn't consider it necessarily for most 1v1 decks, but I might play it in Commander. So it's a high casting cost. You probably won't get it out until turn 4 or 5. But even if that's the case, I think it still gets +2, +2, or +3/+3 when you're playing
in a green
Commander.
deck with ramp, you get this guy out pretty fast. Or in like, I like it in a black green deck with dark rituals. That'd be sweet.
Yeah.
Get it
Yeah,
out
definitely.
early.
I mean, if he doesn't get killed right away, I think he becomes at least a 6, like a 6/7 at least.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's not bad for your deck either. Now that you say it, because like you said, your plan is to play defensive for a good portion of the early game.
Yeah, I like these creatures that grow over time.
Not just the early game, a good portion of the game. So yeah, you just sit there behind your pillow fort, and your Dirt Cow Worm gets bigger and bigger.
Sit there in my mud hole.
In your mud hole, in your pillow hole, in your mud fort. So I'm thinking about this guy. Pretty good card.
Yeah, and he's cheap.
He's cheap.
And he's a rare too, so that's neat. I don't know. I'm happy stocking up on a few of him. I can see. I don't know if people play this a lot in Commander, but I think they should.
They don't. I looked it up on
They
EDH
don't.
Rec. Okay, let's move on to the number 8, Alex, the 8th cheap Tempest rare that I wanted to talk about today. It's Vati Illidan.
Yeah.
This is a rare. It's been reprinted and time shifted. Don't ask me what time shifted is. Anyways, this guy's a casting cost of 2 colorless, 1 black, and 1 green. Summon Legend. This is actually occasionally played in as a commander in commander decks.
Oh, okay.
It's 3/3. You can tap them to give target creatures power, or sorry, to make
toughness.
Target creatures power or toughness 1 until end of turn.
Okay. So he was like a most of the way Royal Assassin.
Yeah. It has a 3.976 rating on Gatherer. Its current market price is 169. I like this guy with a Plague Spitter, Engineered Plague, Caltrops. You just change that toughness to 1, and then you wipe them out with any of those things. Pestilence, if you want to run it with Pestilence also. I don't think anybody plays with Pestilence any longer. People do, at least in pre-modern, play with Plague Spitter, Engineered Plague, Caltrops. I like Vati. I'm like, could I work him into decks? Let's say I played the Rock. We spent a lot of time talking about the Rock. One of the decks that's terrible out there in pre-modern, just stomping people all the time, are just these Dreadnought decks. People just play Dreadnoughts, Stifles, Vision Charms, and they just counter everything you do. And they go so fast that like these slower kind of mid-rangey decks like the Rock that are more creature-based and take time to build up, like, can't deal with this stuff. But what if you ramp out your Vati Illidan on turn 3, it gets through. You just have them there to tap to make the Dreadnought's power 1. I mean, this is a scary thing about the Dreadnought. If the Dreadnought gets down, you have 2 turns to live, max. But if you can neuter him in some way before you get up. And in the meantime, like, he's still doing interesting things separate from the Dreadnought, and he can still attack for 3. And just wondering if maybe this guy has a place in the Rock.